Here's your wrestling news for February 28th, 2023, and we're kicking off today with Bobby Lashley, who has been very angry since Elimination Chamber and hasn't exactly hidden his feelings. Sure, Lashley got the win over Brock Lesnar, but it was the Beast's intentional disqualification that once again robbed Lashley of a clean win over the former Universal Champion. Since then, Lashley has squashed Elias and told Bray Wyatt to keep his name out of his mouth, the latter of which is proving to be easier said than done. On Raw, we saw a bizarre segment from Wyatt about Muscle Man Lashley, and it is clear that Brock and Bobby are going their separate ways. It's a shame that the Lashley vs. Lesnar feud has ended the way it did, as a match with Brock was one of the main reasons for the Almighty's return to WWE back in 2018. While he has had multiple matches, none have lived up to expectations, and even if WWE revisits the feud, the excitement from the fans just won't be at the same level as before. Lashley vs. Wyatt is clearly the plan for WrestleMania, and a stipulation is likely to be attached to the match, but is this really the best use of both former world champions on the biggest show of the year? Raw also saw an appearance from Chelsea Green, who's been making the most of her limited screen time since returning to WWE. The fact that we look forward to her interactions with Adam Pearce says a lot, but this week saw another woman on the roster unhappy with Pearce. During one of Green's rants, Carmella stormed into the office after losing to Asuka in another dominant performance from the Empress, and after Carmella attacked Bianca Belair. This was meant to establish a Belair vs. Carmella match next week, and Chelsea Green and Carmella also briefly interacted, subtly hinting at a future tag team between the two. WWE's women's tag team division has never been treated with a ton of respect and is always in need of more teams, and having these two very character-focused superstars on the same side could be exactly what the division needs. Ever since All Out, a lot has been said about CM Punk and whether he has, on the whole, been an asset or a liability to the AEW roster. After the infamous pay-per-view, Chris Jericho branded Punk a cancer, and the same term was used by WWE's Seth Rollins last month, but Mark Henry feels very differently. Speaking on Busted Open Radio, Henry discussed Punk and said that while he may rub some people the wrong way, that's only because Punk is passionate about his craft. He's not a cancer, he's opinionated, but he's also a teacher and supporter. I've seen him do stuff he didn't have to do. He just did it because he loved the business and wanted to make that wrestler better. CM Punk's arrival in AEW saw the company's ratings rise dramatically, and many believe that only by bringing Punk back can the company reach those heights again. Whether Punk is brought back to TV, that's a decision only he and Tony Khan will be able to make, but while many in AEW are against the idea, the Chicago wrestler does have his supporters. WrestleMania news now, as WWE's biggest event of the year has seen plenty of appearances by The Miz over the years, who's competed across the card. The Miz has competed on the opening match of WrestleMania and has competed in the main event, but will have a much different role this year. On last week's Raw, the A-lister was given an envelope by his wife Maurice, and on this week's show, it was The Miz's honor to introduce the host of WrestleMania 39. That host was revealed to be none other than The Miz himself, though his gloating was short-lived as he was attacked by Seth Rollins, who was looking to get the attention of Logan Paul. This year's WrestleMania is shaping up to be one of the biggest manias of all time, and while The Miz is unlikely to compete at this time, the Grand Slam champion will be featured heavily on the show. It was on last night's Raw that another match for WrestleMania 39 was confirmed, but it's one that apparently no fan was wanting to see. Last week, Omos laid out the challenge to Brock Lesnar in a creative decision that has left fans scratching their heads. Many assumed that Lesnar would face Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania or perhaps Bray Wyatt, but on this week's Raw, Brock accepted the challenge for the match with Omos. On Twitter, fans blasted the match, with one fan calling it a massive L from creative, while others reiterated that nobody wanted to see it. Other fans saw the funny side of things, with one stating that now is the time for the Nigerian giant to bust out a shooting star press and silence critics who feel he is unworthy of a match with the Beast. One fan we saw did suggest that Omos should make a statement at WrestleMania by squashing Lesnar, similar to what Brock did to John Cena back at SummerSlam 2014. And are you excited at all for this match, or is this just a waste of Lesnar at WWE's biggest show of the year? More from Raw, as last night's show saw Solo Sikoa replace Jey Uso for a tag match, as the latter's future with the Bloodline remains unclear. Not only were Sikoa and Jimmy Uso successful in their match with the Street Profits, but Solo got the pinfall on Angelo Dawkins, but was left furious after the match. As Sikoa was about to attack Montez Ford with a steel chair post-match, Kevin Owens entered through the crowd to attack both Solo and Jimmy, laying them both out with stunners. In response, Sikoa had just 4 words for Owens on Twitter, warning the prize fighter, "I'm coming for you." WWE has confirmed Sikoa will face Kevin Owens on next week's episode of Raw, and expect the former NXT North American champion to be even more intense than we usually see him. It has been reported that the WrestleMania 39 plans are for the Usos to defend their undisputed tag team titles against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and while the two Canadians still aren't on the same page, perhaps next week's match with Sikoa will be a turning point in their friendship. In early 2019, Ronda Rousey was riding high as the undefeated Raw Women's Champion, and on the March 18th episode of Raw, picked up another dominant victory over Dana Brooke. It was after swiftly defeating Brooke, Rousey turned her attention to the security guards at ringside, but this segment went too far thanks to Rousey's husband. Sitting at ringside, Rousey's other half, Travis Browne, began throwing some fists of his own, which actually resulted in him being temporarily banned from WWE events. Not long after Raw, Rousey posted an angry message claiming her husband had been barred from Raw, which Ronda actually thought was the worst thing WWE could have done. In her message, Rousey said that her husband was actually there to stop her attacking more security guards, and said that since he'd been banned, WWE's luck had run out. Browne's ban from WWE events would not be a long one, as he would be at that year's Hall of Fame ceremony, and would be part of the gaggle of fighters who pounced on the person who attacked Bret Hart at the ceremony. Travis Browne doesn't have a contract with WWE, but has supported his wife's career, though if he ever does make an appearance, the security team should definitely keep their eye on him. Travis Browne will likely be in attendance to watch Rousey compete at WrestleMania 39, though what plans WWE has for her have yet to be confirmed. It has been reported that WWE had plans for her and Shayna Baszler to challenge Damage Control for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles this April, but as we saw on Raw, that group no longer holds those titles. Even if WWE had gone ahead with this match, this isn't what had been planned at first, as according to Fightful Select, Rousey wasn't supposed to challenge for a title at WrestleMania, but instead walk in as champion. The plan as far back as November had been for Rousey to face Rhea Ripley in April, as the Judgment Day member had always been planned to win the 2023 Women's Royal Rumble match. Ripley was always going to challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania, which was slated to be held by Rousey until she took time off, and the decision was made to put the gold on Charlotte Flair. Perhaps WWE fans will see Ronda Rousey versus Rhea Ripley on a big stage someday, but it won't be at WrestleMania 39. And time will tell what the baddest woman on the planet actually ends up doing this April. Back to Raw, and it was only a few weeks ago that Lita made her surprise return to the Red Brand and immediately aligned herself with Becky Lynch. Last week, the challenge was laid out by Lynch and Lita, who wanted a title match against Damage Control, and WWE now has new Women's Tag Team Champions. The match between the two teams was hard-fought, and Lita, despite it being 17 years since she retired from full-time competition, looked as good as she ever has. Of course, Bayley wasn't going to sit idly by as Dakota Kai and Io Sky defended their titles and tried to prevent Lynch from tagging her in her Hall of Fame partner. This interference brought out the returning Trish Stratus, who took Bayley out, giving Lita the chance to put away Sky with a twist of fate and a lead assault. On Twitter, fans were ecstatic with the title change, with one calling it exactly what the tag team division needs, while others expressed their surprise that the two actually won. This win marks Lita's first championship reign since 2006, and fans were thrilled that the Hall of Famer is getting one more run with WWE Gold. This win means that Lynch and Lita will probably head into WrestleMania as the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, and the road to WrestleMania just got a whole lot more unpredictable. And we're ending today with news from AEW as fans are still waiting for the release of Fight Forever, nearly 2.5 years after the game was first announced in late 2020. Last week, several sites reported that the game would finally be coming out on March 31st, as a Best Buy listing for the game had this as the release date, but that is not the case. When Sportskeeda reached out to AEW for clarity on the matter, they said that the date is absolutely not confirmed and not accurate. Often e-commerce sites are forced to put a dummy date on their listing, otherwise the listing won't appear on the site, and this date does not reflect the game's actual release. It's been said that CM Punk will still be part of AEW Fight Forever despite everything that happened last year, but when that game actually is played by fans remains anyone's guess at this time.